Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel. This is your girl, Mommy So True. Today, we're talking about how do you know you've been abused by a narcissist? Or how do you know that you've been through narcissistic abuse? This is the best way I can break this down to anyone who's already going through it and already understands. You're going to resonate with this video. And if you don't know and you have questions, hopefully I can answer them for you today. Imagine your entire reality being completely disordered. Imagine being manipulated over and over and over in your life, being ridiculed and demeaned your whole life, being completely violated sexually, emotionally, no privacy, always being gaslighted to feel like you're the problem, or always being gaslighted to feel like you're just imagining things or making things up. And once you get old enough to start dating and loving, now this love partner that you have, this person you thought you knew, this person you thought loved you, this person you thought you were building a life together, have been shattered into a billion pieces, and you have no idea where to pick up from. Just imagine that being your reality. Imagine your sense of self being completely diminished. Imagine being either idolized or completely ignored all your life, completely devalued by the people that say they love you. And then after they devalue you behind closed doors, they show you off to the world as a pedestal. You're just an object to those that say they love you. Imagine that being your reality. Imagine being completely discarded or replaced over and over and over again, just to be hoovered and pulled right back into the same cycle of abuse, manipulation, lies, cheating, blackmail, sometimes physically harassed and stalked. Narcissistic abuse comes in so many different ways because there's different types of narcissists. It goes from verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical and extremely violent abuse, sexual abuse, projection, complete sabotage, and the horrendous need to control you fully. These are behaviors that come out of a person who carries no type of empathy, does not care about anyone because they can't care about themselves. These are the character traits of someone who has such high self-entitlement, but yet no sense of self. That doesn't even add up. As a result of this chronic abuse, imagine now struggling with PTSD or complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is more likely associated with those of us who have been dealing with narcissistic abuse since childhood from parents and close relatives. The aftermath of narcissistic abuse is deep depression, severe anxiety. Some of y'all even hyperventilate and have panic attacks. There's a strong sense of shame you end up walking around with when you've been abused by a narcissist. You live your life dealing with flashbacks that reminds you of your abusive incidents, which then brings nightmares. Living with an overwhelming feeling of loneliness and worthlessness. I remember all the nights that I woke up to nightmares through my narcissistic relationship. After any type of physical abuse, there was a nightmare. Finding out about a new supply, there were nightmares torturing me about that. And when you're dealing with a narcissistic lover in the midst of the abuse, it's so hard to pinpoint what you're experiencing because the abuser be twisting words and switching up and flipping on you so much. And with all the intense love bombing and abusive incidents, eventually the abuser convinces you that you're the abuser, and you end up believing it. A lot of people are confused about whether or not they are in a narcissistic relationship or if they're with someone who is a narcissist or someone who is narcissistic. So I'm going to go ahead and help y'all out a little bit today. I'm going to name a few symptoms that I personally have experienced after going through narcissistic abuse since childhood. And as a disclaimer, if you're with somebody who disrespects you and devalues you and talks to you crazy, constantly criticizes you, and is very highly insecure about you and makes you feel like they're torturing you more than loving on you, you're not crazy. You know exactly what's going on. Stop doubting it. You have the answers already in front of you. This is how you know you suffered narcissistic abuse. Are you someone who easily tends to put aside your basic needs and desires? Do you sacrifice your emotional and sometimes even your physical safety to please your abuser? Maybe before you met your abuser, you was full of life, goal-oriented, getting to the money, motivated to open a business or two. Now you feel like you're just living to fulfill this person's life. You may have placed your goals, hobbies, and friendships on a back burner just to keep your abuser happy, just to satisfy the relationship with your abuser. But of course, you soon realize that it doesn't matter what you do, they're never going to be satisfied. You develop a strong sense of mistrust. Everybody represents some type of a threat to you. You easily get anxious around people, anxious about the intentions of other people. Because you've been gaslighted so much, you have a hard time trusting other people, even yourself. You self-isolate. A narcissist would definitely isolate you, but you end up isolating yourself because of all the shame you feel for being with this person who doesn't treat you right. You also self-isolate when you're in a narcissistic relationship because you feel like nobody's going to understand you, so you don't even reach out to law enforcement. You don't reach out for help from anybody. You rather just stay to yourself because nobody's going to understand. That's what the abuser have made you think, and that's what you have also programmed yourself to think after a while. You don't want nobody's judgment, and you don't want the narcissist to retaliate for telling. You self-sabotage and self-destruct your own self because you find yourself ruminating about the abuse often. You're constantly hearing this person's voice in your mind, which adds to negative thoughts, which amps you up in negative talk. And now here you are, self-sabotaging. A malignant narcissist will drive you crazy to the point where you self-destruct so much that it'll drive you into suicide. I had a suicide attempt dealing with my ex-husband. He programmed me to self-destruct myself so deep, so strongly. It started to work. I had to seriously grab a hold of myself or this demon would have took me out. Because of the verbal abuse and the constant put downs, the hypercriticism, it'll make you punish yourself because of the toxic shame behind it. It'll make you sabotage your own goals and dreams because all they did was installing you that you were worthless. And you started to believe it. When you're in a narcissistic relationship or you've dealt with one, you fear doing what you love and you fear success. Because the narcissist is so jealous of you, they punish you for succeeding. Instead of being happy for you and praising you, they punish you with cruelty. You start to fear having to compete with the narcissist, so you just say, you know what, I'm just not even going to pursue it. I'm just going to drop out of college. I'm not even going to apply for the next roll up. And this adds to depression and anxiety. Now you lack in confidence and now you're completely out of the spotlight, just like the narcissist wanted. When you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship, you tend to protect the abuser. You gaslight yourself. You rationalize the behavior and deny it, but that's just a survival mechanism. As a victim, you gotta convince yourself that this person is not that bad. because you're still with them. You learn to program yourself to think that maybe there's something you're doing to make them act how they're acting, so you continue to protect them. Another way to know you've dealt with narcissistic abuse is if you've had suicidal thoughts, suicidal moments, or suicidal attempts. In my lifetime, you guys, I have had 5 unsuccessful suicidal attempts. 5. Starting from the age of 10. And I remember very vividly every attempt. And I remember that every attempt was made after serious narcissistic injuries from family members, and most recently from my ex-lover. Because along with depression and anxiety comes a deep feeling of hopelessness, especially when you're a black sheep and a scapegoat of your family and you have nobody. Your circumstances just feel so unfair and unbearable. It seems like you just can't get out of it. There's no escaping it. A lot of people engage in self-harm just to cope. When you're in a narcissistic love relationship, they push you into suicide because that's their way of killing you without a trace. The malignant narcissist would definitely push you into suicide, because if they can't kill you themselves, they're going to make you do it. Dealing with narcissistic abuse comes health problems. You may gain or lose a significant amount of weight dealing with this type of abuse. You might develop some serious health issues, premature aging, chronic stress that'll start tearing down your immune system, major sleeping problems. You know you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship, or you've been abused by narcissistic people when you're always walking on eggshells, even when you're not in the relationship. A very common symptom of trauma is avoiding things that will remind you of what caused the trauma in the first place. It could be people, it could be activities, it could be places. You find yourself constantly watching what you say, how you act around them. That's walking on eggshells. The biggest one for me is feeling disassociated as a survival mechanism. I struggled a lot in my life with feeling emotionally and physically detached from my environment, experiencing loss of memory. It's the emotional numbing. That's what I like. That's how the best way I can describe it is emotional numbing. Mind numbing activities, obsessions and addictions to find a way to escape. It's like my brain found a way to block out the impact of the pain. So I wouldn't have to deal with nightmares and I wouldn't have to deal with flashbacks. This is something that I had to go to therapy to get a hold of and to get an understanding of, because it was a major struggle for me. I would literally be out and I would just tune out. Someone would be talking to me and I would just literally just space out. I had to work with a trauma-informed therapist for 5 years, y'all. This has been a journey, and it still is. If you're in a narcissistic relationship, or you know you've been through narcissistic abuse, listen, you are not alone. You are not alone, even if you feel like you are. There are millions of survivors all over the world. The first step to healing from this is to become self-aware. So I'm so happy that you're watching this video today. Share your truth with a professional therapist or advocate or another fellow survivor and gain some support, because it is hard to go through this type of abuse and pain. And not everyone understands it. The recovery is challenging, but we're doing it. One day at a time, you guys. Thank you for watching today's video. This is your girl, Mommy So True. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.